OMG, Lucas Bouchard is going to become a dad. Does he have the qualities to be a good dad? Stay tuned. Since you're here, click that button and subscribe, and click the bell and the word all for notifications. In this video, I'm going to analyze why Lucas Bouchard will make a great dad, and I'm going to share some predictions. So I'm going to get started with the whole part about how can we even connect this character to children, because when he comes to town, he has no connections, and also he is the owner of a saloon, which is not a very kid-friendly occupation. So the writers are smart. I could tell right away where this storyline was going. I'm not here to debate that. But they put hints right away. And what they did was they connected him or gave him relationships with 3 of the children that are attached to the main characters that would push forward the storyline of the whole relationship of Lucas and Elizabeth, and of course Lucas and little Jack, because that's a package deal there. So what happens is when we first meet Lucas, he's in the saloon and he's going to have dinner, and we see Cody, and Cody says to his mom, "Is he a scoundrel?" So she's like, "No, go bring him the dinner." So he goes and brings the dinner, and how does Lucas relate to him? He uses magic, which is great because kids love that. You can see that in this scene here. So here's the scoundrel trying to wow the boy with some magic. And look at the expression on Cody's face. That little magic trick endears him immediately to Lucas. So right away, he's very relatable to children. And then the next most important scene would be the scene with him and Allie. So Allie's in town for all of, a hot minute. She runs into Bill for a few seconds, has a quick conversation, sees her uncle. He sends her off to school. They don't even really have much of a scene. But the big telling scene happens with Lucas. So she wanders into the saloon, and he kind of helps her out because she's nervous and he sees that. And we know he's relatable because he's sharing his personal feelings, his life experiences. Yes, he's a grown man, but he tells her, I know how you're feeling, and this is what I did. And you could see that in this scene.
Sorry, mister.
You lost?
I'm never lost.
Are you a fugitive from justice?
No.
So you're just skipping school then?
Kids are so boring. Adults are so much more interesting.
Well, you must be hanging around different adults then.
Besides, I'm no good at making any friends.
Neither was I when I was your age.
Oh, yeah?
I was a bit of a loner. But I discovered a surefire way to make friends.
And what's that?
To amaze them.
Nice.
And then there's little Jack. And you could see that here at the end of the first season. He's in season 6 at the carnival or festival where he wins little Jack a prize, as you could see here. And it's a bear. And of course, he has interaction with the mom and with the son, and she sees how personable he is and how relatable. So they've been setting this up since season 6. There's more from season 7 in the Christmas episode with the children. So you can see that right here.
And to all, a good night.
That's a Christmas classic.
This is the first book I remember ever loving.
Really? I can see that penmanship was not your strong suit.
I was 6. I asked my mother to send it to me so I could read it to little Jack every year, just like she read it to me.
That's nice. Are you creating memories with your mother? Kids like magic, don't you?
Yeah, of course.
How'd you feel about helping me make some?
How do we do that?
Well, I can show you. You in? All right.
So every season, there's more and more and more. Okay, so now let's talk about his qualifications. When I was looking and thinking about this, I was looking up information. I was like, what does it take to be a parent? And I know a lot of the same things are relatable for a teacher. And I went over to Neumers, which is DuPont, and they are a medical institute that's all about children, their mental health, their physical health, every part of, the health of a child. And they have this whole parenting page. And they said one of the first questions that you should ask yourself if you're wondering if you can be a good parent or how to be a good parent is, do you support and guide, or do you push and demand? Well, we know that Lucas Bouchard definitely supports and guides. We could see that just with Elizabeth. He supported and guided her with her writing. He supported and guided her inside their relationship, giving her distance, knowing that she's independent. I also say that there was this metaphor where in that last season, you always see Lucas up on the balcony and you see her, Elizabeth, down at the bottom, and she's always interacting with the people because that's her life, past and present. And then she'd always look up and he'd be there. That's her future. He's over there watching over her. But I know that he supports and guides just by the scenes that they had together. And this is one of my most favorite scenes right here, where the man who blatantly and just right out comes and says, I want your girl, Nathan, and that's his daughter, Allie, which is his niece, but his daughter. She is in love with Elizabeth. She wants Elizabeth to be her mother. It's not working out, and Elizabeth wants to go to her, and this is Lucas's reaction.
Because of copyright laws and the music that is playing in the background here, I cannot use the audio. But what is happening is that they see Allie, who is very sad, and Lucas says and encourages her to go to her, to talk with her. And he says, I can accept a relationship or a friendship, but I don't think that Nathan can. And Elizabeth says, okay, but can we talk about this later? And he agrees. He's like, yes, we can talk about it over dinner. He doesn't demand. He doesn't push.
He doesn't demand that Elizabeth make a choice. He says to her, I can work with that. I can accept that. And he's leaving it up to her to handle how it goes. So he definitely guides and supports. Look at this scene with Allie. So in this scene, he's telling her, I understand why you feel the way you do. Let me tell you about me and what happened with me when I was your age. I get it. And you're a kid. You don't need to have to deal with these things. Yes, you should respect your uncle. Yes, you should root for him. Yes, I get that. But he doesn't demand that she be respectful. He doesn't push her to make a decision. He sort of guides her into it by sharing his own life experiences, which is just what makes for good parenting. Once you demand and push, you stop listening to what the child needs and they get their back up. So we have to say yes to that first question. All right, now the next question is, do you apologize for your mistakes? A lot of adults will not do that with children. I learned that as a teacher, that it is like sometimes the magical snap that is needed for the relationship between you and a child. That respect becomes like tenfold when you recognize that you've made a mistake and you say to the child, I am so sorry, I made a mistake. And you don't have to make excuses, but you say, I hear you, I hear that it hurt you, or I hear that I'm wrong, and I will do my best to correct that or not have it happen. And Lucas is very good at doing this. We see him do this with Elizabeth a few times, and here is one of the first times he's ever apologized to her.
About those chapters, I'm really very sorry. I see now that sending them should have been completely your choice.
Well, I suppose your heart was in the right place.
Still, I was very much out of line.
And then here's even another time that he's apologized to her.
Oh my goodness.
Hello.
Would you like to come in?
I want to apologize for leaving with no explanation and for not even having the decency to say goodbye.
So I can definitely say yes to that. He does own his mistakes. So those two big questions are big yeses for Lucas. Now, when it comes to predictions, so I predict that the whole relationship between Elizabeth and Lucas is going to be really beautiful, fun, romantic, but there's going to be some serious and sad moments, especially for Elizabeth, because Elizabeth is going to have to make room for Lucas in her life. And when she's making that room for her, she doesn't, and that's going to be pushing out Jack's memory a bit, but not for little Jack. And I think because Lucas is so sensitive to things, I think that he would be very accepting of different ideas, like keeping all those beautiful pictures and mementos of Jack, but putting them in the room for little Jack. So he has those things because he never met his dad. And when Lucas becomes like a stepdad or a father figure to Jack, it's going to be a little unique because little Jack's never known his father, and his father is well known and very much revered and respected and loved. So Lucas is going to have to balance that. And I think he's going to be able to do it, but I think it's going to be a bit of a guilt trip for Elizabeth, which is going to cause some hiccups and some really good storylines for season 9. I also think that when it comes to the land, because Elizabeth still has Jack's land, that she's not going to do anything with it. She's going to keep it as legacy for little Jack, and I think Lucas is going to be very much in agreement with it. And they also have the horse. So they're establishing a legacy. They're keeping that memory. And I think that's how Lucas and Elizabeth will deal with it. But I don't think it's going to be easy. And I know Lucas is patient, but I feel like sometimes it might hurt his feelings. We're going to see that vulnerable side of him come out a little bit because he wants her to be all in and he wants to do the right thing. So I'm wondering if maybe he'll need to call his father for some advice. And I would love that. That would be a great way to introduce his dad. Wouldn't that be a great way? Oh my goodness. So I predict there'll be some kind of mention of him talking with his dad, some kind of a correspondence there. Now, getting back to little Jack, we know that Lee and Bill have a big part in little Jack's life. Here's a picture from Christmas time when it was little Jack's first birthday. And we know sometimes Lee and Bill compete a little bit, over how to spend time with little Jack. And now they're going to have less time because in comes Lucas. Now, Lucas is probably wanting of advice, and I think it's going to set up some hilarious storylines where, he's trying to get it right. Lee has his opinion. Bill has his opinion. Rosemary's going to get involved, and I'll talk about that in a minute, and have her opinion. So this is more of a wish. I have on my wish list that the writers have scenes where it's just little Jack and Lucas, which will make for some hilarious things. And of course, he can always have Robert, who could be of help to him, and Laura. But now he has Lee and Bill. And it's just going to be like everybody's got something they need to say. Now, let's talk about Rosemary. Rosemary's going to be very busy, which will take time away from a little Jack. She spends the most time with little Jack next to Laura, who babysits. But she and Elizabeth spend quite a bit of time with little Jack. And she loves little Jack. And you know how possessive she can be and how vocal she is. So I feel like she's going to give maybe Lucas a run for his money and a little bit of a hard time. And it might also cause a little bit of friction between Elizabeth and Rosemary because, there's even less time for her. So they're all going to have to feel their new roles and how this all works out. Hopefully they also, will have some together time too. I know they're going to be working out the relationships, but I want to see them as like a whole extended family unit. Lucas and Elizabeth with baby Jack, Lee with Rosemary, Bill with hopefully Molly, and they're all becoming like this little extended family, which would make for really great storyline. And my last prediction with Lucas and being like a father figure has to do more with Allie. I've said this before, I feel like Nathan is going to be very busy. He's going to need some help. We already have that relationship there with Elizabeth and Allie, and I think that we're going to have to include Lucas in this now. Even though Lucas and Allie are an odd kind of couple because of Nathan, they do already have an established relationship. And the writers were smart to do that. So now we're going to ease in Elizabeth, and I feel like Elizabeth plus Lucas together are going, because they're a couple, are going to have to help with the raising or the help of taking care of Allie this season. And hopefully it will continue. And again, she'll be part of that whole extended family. And I wanted to end with a prediction that is not mine. I'm not saying I don't agree with it. I think it's very interesting. It would make for a wonderful storyline. And the person who left it in the comments and was explaining to me, her handle or the name she goes by is DKEDK Chestnut. So she was saying that she predicts that that land that I had mentioned earlier would be something that is very valuable to whoever's buying up the town. And Elizabeth won't want to sell. And because she doesn't want to sell, they maybe kidnap her or baby Jack and they put her in harm's way. And this is what makes Nathan and Lucas come together and to save Elizabeth. Of course, they will be saved and she'll get to keep the land. And she was thinking that the land would then either go to Claire, maybe she would give it to Clara and Jesse or sell it to them. But of course, also the possibility of keeping it for little Jack, which is what I'm rooting for and think would happen. But I wanted to put that in because that is kind of an interesting little scenario there. And we do know that Lucas is going to be very protective because he already is of Elizabeth, but now, of course, with baby Jack, and there is that elevated danger going on because we see more people walking around with guns like the Pinkertons and Bill walking around with his suit and his gun, and the Pinkertons just being there, all those cars, that traffic. There's now a gas station, so it's a little more busier, and there's people coming from the outside. So I think that that's a pretty good prediction. You can leave that in the comments. Tell me what you think. So Lucas Bouchard, Dad, yes, yes, and yes. Okay, thank you for tuning in. Next week, I am going to share some behind the scenes photos that I'm sure many of you have seen, but did you know that 8 of them were sent to me personally by Peter DeLuise, who I've had a crush on since I was a young girl. But anyway, that's a whole other story. See you later.